Hello everyone, this is Diaspora TV and me, Jamal Statsenko. Today we're gonna speak with Thijs Reuten. He's a member of European Parliament from Labour Party of Netherlands, which part of Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament. And today we're gonna speak about the war in Ukraine. Thijs recently returned from the Kyiv, and I think you have lots of information to share.
Yeah.
What do you feel after you return?
I was in Kiev as the spokesperson for the Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament because I'm responsible for Ukraine in our group, and I was there with our group president, Irache Garcia Perez, and with 2 or 3 other colleagues. And we were mainly there also to mark our unwavering solidarity with Ukraine, but also to talk with the government and with also President Zelensky about what we need to do now. Because what we see happening now is that too many European governments are waiting. They have entered into a waiting mode, and that is very dangerous for Ukraine, but also for Europe itself. So we were there to speak, and I was very impressed by the ongoing commitment, the ongoing bravery of the Ukrainian people. Of course, they also said to us that everybody is tired, but that doesn't mean that we are going to give up. And that should be a signal also to us in Europe. And what I also remember, and what I think is important to understand also for the Dutch audience, is that our Ukrainian partners said to us, we, more than anyone else, want peace. But it needs to be a just peace that is also lasting. Because, in my opinion, there is now too much focus, too much talk about what will happen in January. And that is very dangerous because it distracts us from what we need to do now. What we need to do now is protect Ukrainian cities, protect Ukrainian civil infrastructure that was attacked also last night again in a criminal attack by Russia. And that should be our focus now, not something that might or might not happen next year.
You mean January, you mean Trump, right?
Yes, I mean that, and I personally do not believe that there will be some kind of magical moment happening in January. But even if you believe that, I think that you should continue to give Ukraine what it needs to win up until the 19th of January and even after that, because even if we end up in a situation, a different situation than now, we need to have a credible deterrence to prevent Putin from rearming, from doing this again. So there is absolutely no room, we don't have the luxury to go into this waiting mode. It's dangerous for Ukraine and it's dangerous for the rest of the EU.
Lots of analytics and politics told last time that they are scared about after inauguration of the Trump, we have a less supporting of the NATO. They could be in the future being a face-to-face with aggressor, with Russia. And what the basic European thoughts about it, like in the parliament, maybe in a colors?
Well, I think that in the European Parliament, sometimes a little bit of a different mode there than in the European Parliament than in national parliaments. In the European Parliament, from the start, we have been full square behind Ukraine. We were the first to ask for the tanks when nobody talked about tanks. We were the first to ask about the ATACMS when nobody wanted to talk about the missiles. We were the first to ask for the fighter jets. And every time the governments waited and went into the meeting rooms to discuss and to analyze, and that cost us a lot of precious time. I do not want to say that we were right and they were wrong, but if you see now what is happening on the battlefield, then we see that the ATACMS are a success because Ukraine succeeds in attacking the airfields from where Russia flies over occupied Ukraine and launches these bombs, launches these weapons. But we need to do more. We need to provide Ukraine with the ATACMS to attack the targets from where Ukraine is being attacked. What will it do? It will also enable Ukraine to use the fighter jets closer to the front line, which gives Ukraine an advantage in the defense. Because also this is something that people still fail to understand.
I mean, example, the Germany is like a locomotive of the European Union, European Parliament, but they are still hesitating about the thing.
Well, we need to be also honest about the case of Germany, because there's two sides to that. Yes, we in the European Parliament have been also critical about not delivering the long-range missiles. We want Germany also to help with that. We have been critical also in the past of the delays with the tanks, but we also have to acknowledge that Germany, in terms of nominal contributions, is one of the biggest suppliers of military assistance to Ukraine. So you cannot say that it's only Germany that is not doing enough. Germany is doing a lot. I'm more critical. Yes. I'm more critical of some countries. I can mention maybe Greece, Italy, that have a lot of military goods still in storage, but they have really done. Compared to countries in Scandinavia, the Baltic countries, also the Netherlands, they have done very little. And I think that this should be a European joint effort. There is no room, as I said, for the luxury of going into this waiting mode. This is the moment to step up and to make sure that Ukraine can be as strong as possible on the battlefield, and also possibly in some future negotiations, of which I am skeptical, but and also there I want to be crystal clear about that, because that's also a message that we heard in Kyiv from the government and from the president. We need to make sure that also in the near future there will be not just paper security guarantees, because paper security guarantees, as we have seen,
yes,
are not as solid as real security in terms of a NATO membership on the table. I understand how difficult it is for some member states and some people within the NATO alliance to cross that bridge at this moment. But what I do not like is that we still are not treating Ukraine as if it is already in NATO, because that is, I think, what should happen. You should treat Ukraine as an ally. A real ally means that you treat Ukraine as if it is already part of your alliance. And that is unfortunately not happening. But we need to keep pushing for that, and the European Parliament will do so. I'm convinced of that. But we need the national parliaments to back that position.
The example yesterday, the boss of NATO, Mark Rutte, also Dutch, told like people who live in NATO countries have to morally prepare for the war. It means it's also late for the last week. Ruben Brekelmans, the Minister of Defense of Netherlands, also told like it seems Ukraine about to lose, and but at the same time it is a countries what hesitating about NATO budget, about helping Ukraine military. What's the reason? Why do you think? Why they're hesitating? Like it's a lack of the power, strong politics, or it's just scaring of to be involved in some war?
Well, I think it's difficult to analyze and to understand precisely what was the meaning of the intention of what has been said. But I think that you can read it different messages in it. If you listen to Secretary General Rutte, Secretary General of NATO, he gives also a message to Washington. Because by saying that Europe needs to prepare, needs to do more, he also gives a signal to Washington, yes, we understand that we need to invest more in defense. So I think that is one message that you can take out of it. The second message, yes, it's good that we tell to our citizens in the European Union that peace and stability cannot be taken for granted. The downside of of this kind of messages is that indeed people might get scared. And the other element that is important is that we need to keep also focusing on Ukraine, making sure that Ukraine can defend itself and can win this. And talking about the possibility of losing is not very motivating, I think, to do more. But again, I think that Secretary General Rutte plays a very good role in NATO. He is capable of building the bridge also across the Atlantic, and which is not his responsibility, but which is a responsibility of the European Union. I think the European Union within NATO should make an offer to Washington. They should make an offer to Washington, basically meaning we understand that we need to do more ourselves for the security on our continent, but please, United States, remain involved with your defense industry, because in the short term, unfortunately, we do not have the capacity in Europe to make all the necessary weapon systems that we need in the short and mid-term for our own defense, but also to assist Ukraine to have a credible deterrence. So we will need the United States on board with their industrial capacity. In the meantime, we need to invest more in our collective, including the Ukrainian industrial capacity, because Ukraine is building up a fantastic and high-tech military industry at the moment that is going to be an asset for Europe as a whole, because the Ukrainian military industry can help us to become stronger as a continent. But in order to get there, we need the US support for the short term. And that means that we need to be able to provide more money for that. So I am of the opinion that the European Union should not wait till the 20th of January, but they should proactively offer to the United States to do more in financial terms. So we are prepared to put more money on the table, but we need you to remain engaged with the defense industry in order to bridge the gap between the moment that we will have more capacity in Europe and together with Ukraine to deliver our own our military weapon systems.
Okay, just return for your trip in Ukraine. What do you think after all of this, understanding this Ukraine really need more support in, and you just visited the Kyiv and maybe met, I sure met lots of people from the government who think the same way like you.
Yeah.
And what do you think? What the key to for Ukraine to win in this war?
What I admire and also what I respect a lot about President Zelensky in the first place, but also his team, his government, and even we spoke to the chairperson of the Verkhovna Rada, Mr. Stefanchuk, and the messages that they are sending are consistent. They are not asking for new things or for new. They are asking the same thing already for a long time. Let me just give one example. In April, there was a clear request for 7 more Patriot systems, or high-tech air defense systems, could also be from another brand, Iris-T, for example. Now, President Zelensky reiterated that call and said, if you give us 10, deliver us 10 more of these high-tech air defense systems, we can make sure that almost all of Ukraine will be properly defended. Will it mean that there will not be any missile coming through? Yeah, 100% security is impossible. But we need to understand that not only now in the short term, but also for the midterm and the long term, more air defense in that part of Europe is necessary. So that's why I do not understand why we still have certain systems in storage. Of course, we need to keep some air defense systems also on other crucial parts of Europe, but there is more that we can do. And there's another thing, also the mobile air defense, the manpads that you can fire as an individual from your shoulder have proven to be very effective against the low-tech drones that are used by Russia, because of course you don't want to use a expensive Patriot missile for a low-tech or small drone. So we need to diversify also in what we give to Ukraine. And as I said before, we need to treat Ukraine as a full-fledged ally of NATO. Yes, they are not yet part of NATO, but they are our ally in the defense of our collective values, our European values of democracy and freedom. So please, member states, treat Ukraine also accordingly. So air defense was an important topic. And then, of course, looking forward to what might come, we will need also a credible deterrent for Putin, because one of the lessons that we should have learned already in 2008, when Russia invaded part of Georgia, then in 2014, when there was the annexation of the Crimea, we should have learned our lessons. If we do not learn them now, then when will we learn them? Because what we know and what we should have known by now, that an autocrat of the type like Putin, a super autocrat as I call him, he will never stop until we stop him. We need to stop him because he will never by himself stop. That is also why I do not believe that there will be some kind of magical moment on the 20th of January when Trump will take office, because Putin has for years not really been interested in a negotiated solution. Because if he would have been interested in a negotiated solution, he would not have done what he did. Because, and I have to remember, especially also the Dutch audience for that, and also some journalists, there has never been a threat to Putin from Ukraine. Ukraine was never a threat to Putin. NATO was never a threat to Putin. It's all in his head. It's all his kind of crazy fantasy world that he is living in, and that he tries to get through with all the fake news and all the disinformation that he tries to enter in our societies to destabilize us also in the European Union. His influencing of the Romanian elections, the Moldovan elections, and all the disinformation that's being spread throughout Europe. And so we have to keep our eyes on the ball. We have to remain focused and not to be distracted by all these kind of narratives and disinformation that is getting to us, because it's dangerous. If we start giving into that kind of narrative, it's dangerous. And I also get a lot the question, yes, but maybe Putin also had a point. My simple answer to that is, you never have a point if you invade a country that is not yours. You never have a point.
Yeah,
period.
If you are autocratic guy who ruled the country for almost 25 years, how you could have a right point?
Well, I mean, the conclusion of what happened also in early 2022, is that we have been deceived. Yes, Putin deceived us because he tried to play, I'm always open to negotiate, but in reality, he has been preparing for years to attack Kyiv and to attack Ukraine. And okay, we have not been listening careful enough to the signals, to the lessons that we should have learned. But yes, we didn't learn the lesson back then in 2008, in 2014. Let me just take a sidestep. When I was in Kyiv, we also visited the Wall of Remembrance. And there you see really how long this war is already going on, because that's also a common mistake in the West and in the international community, that the war is only since February 22.
Yeah, it's 10 years.
But you see there all the brave Ukrainians that died already in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and so on. So if we were not able to learn the lesson back then, let's make sure that we have learned the lesson now, that we understand that Putin will not stop unless we collectively, as a European family of democracies, stop him.
everybody really appreciate that the Netherlands really support Ukraine, and you really support Ukraine in your social medias. We visit every time, and you think if Europe keeps supporting
Yeah.
Ukraine and the United States keep supporting Ukraine, will we win in the same territory? I mean, 1990, 91st year, and it's only the one way what Zelensky
Yeah.
speaking about now. But everybody start to speak peace talks, forgetting about the Crimea, about the Donbass and Lugansk, and starting to bit agree with the losing of some territories um, to make that.
Well, unfortunately, also that narrative is not new because already for a couple of years we hear people saying, yeah, maybe Ukraine should give up some territory in exchange for peace. First of all, if it was that simple, it might already have happened. But nobody who really understands the situation believes that it will stop if you give up land for peace with an unfavorable conditions. Personally, I am still have a big difficulties in accepting anything, anything than a return to the full international recognized territory of Ukraine, including Crimea, because that is what upholding international law should mean. But ultimately, and that is, I think, something also to be very aware of, it is up to the Ukrainians to decide what is acceptable and when a just and lasting peace is on the table. That is also why I make a big point, also in the European Parliament, about constantly saying there cannot be any kind of negotiation about Ukraine without Ukraine. The brave Ukrainians have been fighting also on our behalf for the defense of their own country, their own freedom, but also for that freedom of Europe. So it is up to the Ukrainians to decide when and under which conditions to enter these negotiations. But the whole narrative of giving up territory also again distracts us from what needs to be done. This should not be now and not next month and not next year about this. It should be about how we can best support Ukraine to defend itself. And if we do that in a good way, I'm sure that Ukraine will also be able to withstand the Russian pressure. I think we also underestimate how weak Russia actually is. Russia is weaker than some of us think. And that is, again, this influence of the Russian narratives entering into our society, because, of course, Putin wants us to believe that we have to be afraid of him, because that is part of autocratic behavior. Try to intimidate the adversary, try to make yourself look strong by launching some new big missile. It's not a sign of strength, it's a sign of weakness. A sign of strength.
North Korean soldiers also.
Yeah, also a sign of weakness. So we need to keep our eye on the ball, remain focused on what we really need to do. And I said that also last month in the European Parliament. Some people think that in the beginning of November, with the elections in the United States, something has changed. No, in terms of what we need to do, nothing has changed. Because before the elections in the United States and after the elections in the United States, our task is very simple: give Ukraine what it needs to win. That is what we need to do. We should not be into the thinking about analyzing what is your... No, our task has not changed. We should support Ukraine with whatever it needs to win. And if we are not doing that because we are distracted by what might happen in the 20th of January or what might happen in the course of next year, we are not only letting down the Ukrainian people, but we are also damaging our own security. Because I am a friend of Ukraine first and foremost, but to my fellow Europeans, to my fellow Europeans, I say, if you do not do it for Ukraine, do it for yourself. Because Ukraine's security, Ukraine's territorial integrity, Ukraine's quest for freedom, Ukraine's quest to be part of our European family should be our biggest motivation to continue to support Ukraine, because our destiny is the same. We need to form a strong bloc in Europe with Ukraine part of our European family. I am convinced that that will happen in the future. It will take time and it will take a lot of effort also from Ukrainians, but it will happen and it will ultimately make our family of democracies stronger.
If everybody, all politics thinks like you, I think we will end this war. This war 2 years ago, maybe, you know. But we started just from the hesitating and scariest countries who really didn't want to give nothing except the clothes for the refugees. But now, like almost all members of European Union and NATO helps really a lot.
True.
Netherlands helps. I think one of the biggest helper.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the European Parliament, so I'm not in the Dutch Parliament. But of course, I am happy to see that even with elections having passed in the Netherlands, the support in the Dutch Parliament is still strong. That the Netherlands was at the forefront of helping with the fighter jets, the coalition of the fighter jets. But we have to remain vigilant because of the situation in the Netherlands. You see that the Netherlands sometimes at the moment is not being invited to all the conversations with smaller groups of countries. You see now that some countries like Denmark are going ahead with investing in also Ukrainian defense in cooperation. The Netherlands is also doing that, but because of the internal problems in the Dutch government, other countries see that and they say, well, is it safe to invite the Netherlands also to our conversations on maybe how to protect also Ukraine in the future, how to invest more with a group of EU countries within NATO. So we need to be careful about that, because we had a strong position thanks to also our big efforts, and I'm happy with Minister Brekelmans, who is not from my party, but I think he's doing a good job in maintaining that support. But we need to be careful that the position of the Netherlands, which is complicated because of the divisions within the government, because the far right is influential in the Dutch government, we need to make sure that our position remains strong. And I'm worried about that, because too many things are happening in the Dutch government that make the situation unstable, and that's not good for our international position.
Yeah, that's what changed when Brekelmans started to be a minister.
Yeah.
He started to direct speaking about the Russian. I mean, he started to direct speaking that we have to help Ukraine.
Oh, but he did a good job.
The Reuten started when he was a prime minister. Also really loud speaking about it.
But that's also a good thing about the situation in the Netherlands, that from the start in February 22 up to now, it did not really matter who was in or out of government, because also my party, GroenLinks PvdA, who was not in government then, who still is not in government, but we always supported the strong position of the Netherlands to support Ukraine, and we will continue to do so. But the whole government, including everyone who's a part of that, also needs to continue on this line, because it is important for the Netherlands and for Europe, and of course for Ukraine.
Okay, we spoke almost about all topics. Yes, I think. Maybe you also want to add some idea.
Well, maybe also a remark on how impressed I am by the bravery of the Ukrainian people. I think that what the Ukrainians have shown us in terms of the braveness, in terms of the persistence, in terms of also, it pains me almost to say that, but everyone we spoke to in Kyiv, but also all the Ukrainians I meet here in the Netherlands and in other parts of Europe, they are so grateful and for the support that we give. And I also said to some of our interlocutors that I can do what I do and that I'm speaking out as loud as I can, possibly can, because I feel supported by the braveness of the Ukrainian people. So I have to thank you, and I have to thank our Ukrainian friends for being such a great example, which inspires us, me, my colleagues, to do what we do. I mean, what we do has nothing to do with being brave. It's just our obligation, I think, towards the Ukrainian people and ultimately also towards ourselves, because as I've been saying also throughout this interview, this is also about our own security and our own future in Europe as a continent. And maybe also good to remind everyone that when we started this project of European cooperation a long time ago, more than 70 years ago, we started with 6 countries, but it was never the intention to remain with 6 countries. The intention was to create the biggest zone of freedom and stability on our continent. And Ukraine always has been part of Europe. And they also now want to be part of this European family of democracy and freedom. And that should be the biggest compliment that we can get. That a country like Ukraine, but also other candidate countries in Southeastern Europe,
Want to join.
Balkans, they want to join, they want to be part of that. And of course, that is not going to happen like this. There's a lot to do before you can join the European Union. But we need to show that commitment and that we say also to Ukraine, yes, it will take a long time, and yes, it's not going to be easy, but we are going to do it together. That is the spirit that I would like to see, the spirit that we also had in the 90s when there was the German reunification, when there was the countries in Eastern Europe joining the European Union. Also back then, it was not easy. But we said, it's not going to be easy, it's going to take many years, but we are going to do it. And that is, I think, the notion that we have to embrace, that Ukraine ultimately will be a strong partner, will make Europe as a whole stronger at the world stage, but also it makes our family of democracies stronger. It's something I really believe in, and I think we not only owe it to our Ukrainian fellow Europeans, but we also owe it to ourselves, because we need to make this bloc stronger. We need to finish this project and not wait with unnecessarily long with the accession of new countries. Of course, with the respect for all the treaty obligations, and that's also something, a big misunderstanding. Ukrainians, for instance, but also people in Moldova and all the other countries that want to join, they understand very well that they have a lot of work to do. We don't have to tell them all the time, oh, you have a lot of work to do. What we have to do is to help them to get the work done, to help them
share experience.
Exactly, and to make sure that, because it's also in our interest that it will not go like the past 10 years. Because the past 10 years we have had too many countries in the waiting room, and we did not help enough. We did not do enough to get them out of the waiting room and to get them prepared for being part of the European Union. That has to change. That is my objective also for the coming 5 years. And I think Ukraine will, sooner or later, be part also of the European Union. I'm convinced of that, not only because I believe in the Ukrainians, but also because I believe it will make Europe as a whole stronger at the world stage, but also internally.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have a small present for you.
No.
Влад, можеш, будь ласка, подати?
Oh, that's not necessary, man.
We have a small tradition, thank you. A small tradition to give a present for all our guests. And I think you have to look on it.
I have a look at it.
It's a gift direct from Ukraine, from Kharkiv. I'm originally from Kharkiv. I'm from Kharkiv.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Shopper
Oh, that's great.
is a name of our city, Kharkiv. It is like a most famous place in the city center.
Yeah,
It's like a fontaine with a
very nice, very beautiful.
with a nice green place in the park. You know, maybe if you visit Kharkiv one time,
I hope.
future, the first what you see in the city
Is this.
center is this. Yes.
I hope to visit Kharkiv also in the near future. And I met already people from Kharkiv when I was in Ukraine first time, because I was in Ukraine in 2016 to give a training there. That's also where I met some people that I also saw again this week. And I meet them frequently also in Brussels. But I think we have to develop also more personal connections over the next years, because now we have a unique situation, which is a benefit also of what has happened, because a lot of people in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Spain, in France, they know Ukrainians because they have Ukrainians going to school with their children. We have Ukrainians working in our societies. So we have to use that. You are all ambassadors for Ukraine's future. And building these personal connections is very important, because ultimately we will need all the European member states, their governments, but also the societies to agree also on the accession of Ukraine. So it's important that we invest in these personal connections and to develop friendships, but also to develop connections across the border. And I'm really touched by the president from Kharkiv.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate all what you do.